Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and we've got a lot of news for you tonight, which is good because it's a Man United news show. We're going to be talking about Erik Ten Hag being ready for the Manchester United job. Fabrizio Romano saying he's ready. He's talked about structure. He's spoken about players. He's spoken about transfers. He's already thinking of Manchester United, which is obviously fantastic. We've also got updates on potentially Steve McClaren returning to Manchester United as assistant coach. Has worked in the Dutch league with Erik Ten Hag before at FC20. Also a bit of transfer news and also what it says on the thumbnail, mates rates. Andy Mitten, very close to Manchester United, does the press conferences. He's come out with an article today saying that Manchester United are not really listening to Ralf Rangnick, but they have consulted ex-players for their opinion on the Manchester United manager. Bloody ridiculous, not surprising, mates rates FC. So some positive on Erik Ten Hag, but some concerning thoughts on ex-players being consulted, especially when Darren Fletcher and John Murtagh are heading up this recruitment process. Darren Fletcher is inexperienced, has no CV, and is an ex-player who is also speaking to inexperienced ex-players who, let's be honest, their public opinion over the last 12 months has been very poor. We'll talk about that in a minute. Josh, Matlock and KB, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much for joining. So look, before we get into the show though, I'm wearing my BoohooMAN clobber. We're sponsored by BoohooMAN and we always love a little bit of a BoohooMAN integration, don't we? Remember, you can use the QR code by holding your phone up and just scanning it through your camera to go straight to the website. BoohooMAN Active is all about looking good and feeling great when you are being active. And this could be when you're at the gym, going for a walk, playing football, or just sat there streaming, playing your computer games. Because BoohooMAN are sponsoring the show, it means it's time for some Manchester United trivia. And because United are playing Everton on Saturday, BoohooMAN want to know which United players have scored the most goals against Everton. Little extra clue, the second and third place top scorers are tied at 7 goals each. So get in the chat, let me know which 3 United players you think have scored the most goals against Everton. And whilst you're doing that, let me let you know this, that you can use the code UnitedStand. And because BoohooMAN love everyone who watches the United Stand, they're giving you 40% off, plus you'll get an additional 10% off after the discount has been applied. This extra 10% applies to everything on the site except for certain sale items. And I mean, I don't know what's this. Well done. When you use the code extra, it's not United Stand. You've got to don't use the code United Stand. It won't work. Use the code EXTRA at checkout and get your usual 40% off plus the additional 10%. So, the top 3 scorers are as follows. In third place, this will surprise you, top 3 scorers against Everton for Manchester United is third place, Anthony Martial with 7 goals. Martial, third place, all-time scorer against Everton for Manchester United. Second place, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, also with 7 goals. And in first place, it's the Lawman. It's the original king. It's Dennis Law with 8 goals. So there you go. Law, Solskjaer, Martial. I guarantee nobody would have got that. Nobody. David, thank you and welcome to the Members Club. And also, Mark, have you seen the Cadbury Easter egg advert with Maguire and Pogba? We are definitely moving further away from being a football club. Luke, I haven't seen it. And even though I haven't seen it, my eyes are bleached. We are, you're right, we are. And all I can say about Cadbury's Cream Egg adverts and wine adverts and every other bit of brand sponsor we do, all I can ever think is 4 of the top 5 Premier League best paid players are Manchester United players and 10 of the top 30, and we're nowhere near winning the Premier League. It's disgusting what we've become, isn't it? I don't understand the obsession with Pochettino, says Nazim, and welcome to the Members Club, Desmond. Thank you very much for joining and supporting the channel. So let's get into the news. And I think the first... Look, let's start off with Fabrizio Romano's update because it's a positive. And he said that Erik Ten Hag is already well informed on all things like budget and signings, and he's already thinking of Manchester United. That was Fabrizio Romano's update today. So he's already well informed on everything Manchester United, from structure, transfers, players, budget, and he's already thinking of Manchester United. So that is a good start to the show. It's a good positive start to the show from a very good journalist who will be very close to this story. He'll be desperate to get the here we go before everybody else. Whether he'll get that, I don't know. It's hard these days, isn't it? But and also that everything's very positive around Erik Ten Hag at the moment. And I want to start on a positive today because I think my distrust of Manchester United and how they're run probably clouds the issue that the fact is, and I must keep stating this, everyone I've spoken to, everything that's public, it's very positive around Erik Ten Hag. He is still the favourite. And that's an update from Fabrizio Romano today about Erik Ten Hag being well informed and ready to go at Manchester United effectively. So that's the truth. For me, the problem is I don't trust the club. I just don't trust the club to get this right, and we'll get into why that is in a minute. And also another positive is that Steve McLaren has been mentioned as a potential assistant to come in and work with Erik Ten Hag at Manchester United, or under Erik Ten Hag. Now, Steve McLaren didn't really work out well as a manager. Wally with the brolly, they called him, when he managed England, and obviously he's managed other clubs like Derby and QPR to not great success. But as an assistant coach, he was pretty good. I think he was Sven's assistant coach, actually. Sven-Goran Eriksson for a number of years. England always did reasonably well under Sven, even though the football was a bit shit. And he was obviously Sir Alex Ferguson's assistant in '99 when we won the treble. So as assistant coach, who's worked with Ten Hag at FC20, I think that's the sort of person. I wouldn't mind Steve McLaren coming and working at Manchester United as assistant coach. He's actually got pedigree. He's actually got experience of what we're trying to do. So I wouldn't mind that. Murta and Arnold ask Sean Miller says, Murta and Arnold ask Mice which rat poison to use. I like it. I like what you're saying there, actually. If the board listens to the ex-players, I'm going to lose my mind. The fact that it's even coming to a competition is ridiculous, says Story David. So look, there are some positives around Erik Ten Hag, of course. I wouldn't mind Steve McLaren, as I said. And also, obviously, I really want Erik Ten Hag. And I suppose the positive start off is that when you look at it, there is reason to be positive around Erik Ten Hag still. However, Manchester United are still at pains to say that this is a very open race and no decisions have been made. Now, Andy Mitten's update in his article today is still positive around Erik Ten Hag. It is still positive around Erik Ten Hag. In no way does it say that he is not the preferred option or anything like that. But there was a couple of excerpts from it that really concerned me. The first one was that current interim boss Ralf Rangnick has limited say in the new manager and has been asked to concentrate on seeing the season out and getting United as high a league position as possible. That to me is stunning. That we're basically giving Murta and Fletcher the free run on the manager and telling Ralf Rangnick to just get on with the football. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is like bloody, chief burger flipper at McDonald's telling Gordon Ramsay to get out the kitchen because I'm cooking the dinner tonight. I can't believe that we're not going to use and utilise Ralf Rangnick and that he's got a limited say. And what concerns me about this is that Andy Mitten is somebody who sits in press conferences, who has good access to Manchester United communications, and that may well be coming from somebody very close to the club saying that Ralf Rangnick has got limited say on the new manager. And it develops even worse because he goes on to say in his article, United's football director, John Murta, and technical director Darren Fletcher have had many meetings which began 6 weeks ago following a period of detailed research and consultation on the United side, which included the views of several former United players. So Darren Fletcher and John Murta, who are leading this recruitment of the manager, have had many meetings and many conversations, including the views of several former United players. And I tell you what, every time I read it, it makes my stomach turn. I just cannot believe in the same article, and it's not Andy Mitten's fault, he's obviously got the information from somewhere, but the same article goes from saying United's kingmakers in Murta and Fletcher have spoken to ex-players about who the manager should be, but have basically said to Rangnick, you've got a very limited role in this, carry on training the team. So let me just spell this out for you. Manchester United, Darren Fletcher and John Murta are seeking the opinion of ex-players and giving Rangnick a limited role in who the manager should be. So Ralf Rangnick, who for the last decade has rebuilt football clubs, has got a limited role, but ex-players who spout crap on TV are being asked for their opinion. Where's my phone call? Because I can speak crap as well. It's on a serious note, it terrifies me. The only saving grace is that Erik Ten Hag is still the favourite to get the job. And if he gets the job, however they get there, it's the right decision. The concern is, if we end up with Pochettino, we've got the facts of what they've been up to. Speaking to fucking ex-players and not giving Rangnick the role he should have had, which is really, really intrinsically involved in who the manager's going to be. So, look, we'll have to wait and see if there's any counter story to that from United, because they won't like that story, because it's a damaging story. Ralf Rangnick, limited role in who the manager's going to be, but we've been speaking to ex-players about who the manager should be. And also, why would you speak to ex-players? I really, look, I love Roy Keane, love Paul Scholes. Are they the ex-players they've spoken to? They are very, 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 very good players, legends of our football club. But what do they know about who the Man United manager should be? And I'm not being disrespectful to them, but what do they offer? Sure, I mean, if somebody said to me, do you want to speak to Roy Keane and Paul Scholes about the next Man United manager? Or do you want to go and speak to one of the best director of footballs in Europe, who I don't even know the name of? I'll go and speak to the best director in football in Europe, because he will have a very, very thorough understanding of modern football. Paul Scholes and Roy Keane, legends of the club, but we're talking about appointing a manager in 2022 to rebuild Manchester United into a new team. Talking to an ex-player about it is like watching UK Gold. It probably won't transpire what we need. And also, do they spend time? I mean, I don't know who these ex-players are that they've spoken to, but every ex-player we've heard speak publicly about this, they want a manager because it's the only one they know about. It's the one they've spent a bit of time with 5 years ago. I just... Whatever happens with the next appointment, this club has got... Well, it won't stop. There's no point saying it. It's really sad how this football club values DNA of players that haven't played for this club for a very long time. And the reason this club built itself from obscurity, from not winning the league title for over 20 years, is because they went in a completely different direction with Sir Alex Ferguson. And yet we haven't learned from that. Even the people who were part of that haven't learned from that. All these ex-players who talk about Poch being the right choice because he's Premier League proven seem to forget they've played under Fergie, a manager who wasn't Premier League proven. Yeah, Naveen, I was sort of trying to say that as well. Zena, thank you very much for becoming a member of the club. And asking ex-players about the new manager is like asking your ex on your new partner, says Arjun. Fletcher is pissed off that Rangnick said he doesn't know what Fletcher's job is, says Desmond. Well, look, yeah, I mean, I don't know about that. Maybe there's something in that. I don't know. Ex-players are a joke, says Hugo. They say Rashford is out of form, which he does when he doesn't run, but Martial, when he is subpar. He's a lazy and a joke. Doesn't listen to them, says Hugo. Look, my concern is, the ex-players are making us ready for Poch, says Reba. Incompetent doesn't even begin to describe our board and owners. Utterly embarrassing. League One level management, says Adam. And even if we appoint Erik Ten Hag, I don't have confidence in the board players to completely commit behind him. Ralph has been intensely disrespected, says Marcellino. Look, when I think about this, and I was going to talk about this anyway, this was a topic I was going to talk about tonight. Really, and it's a shame it's not a headline because there are other things to talk about, but I completely agree with that previous post that the misuse of Ralf Rangnick is ridiculous. As I said the other night, it's like getting Mo Farah to come and run the 100 metres. He's a long distance runner, Ralf Rangnick. He builds football clubs over a period of time. And we've basically got him in to manage the club for 5 months. I mean, with all due respect, the jury is out on John Murtagh. It is. He's been at the club for a very long time. He's not a brand new director of football. He's been at this club involved in recruitment since 2013. Nearly 10 years. Yes, he got the director of football job last year, but what did Solskjaer say? It's not really much of a change from what he was doing before. It's the same people talking about transfers and, John's a director of football, but he's still doing the same role. It was moving somebody across into a role they were basically doing. Darren Fletcher came to this club 18 months ago to get his coaching badges and train the youth team. He's now technical director, deciding who our next manager is going to be, as an ex-player who's very inexperienced and nobody really knows what his role is, because sometimes he's putting the cones out and sometimes he's interviewing who's going to be our next manager. He's a work experience guy. That might be very, very, very disrespectful, but it's true. You can't go from doing your coaching badges 18 months ago to being a fully fledged, fully experienced technical director. He's learning on the job. And I think anybody would agree with that. So, I'm sorry, John Murtagh and Darren Fletcher don't fill me with the biggest amount of confidence. which is why we should have utilised Ralph Rangnick. And I just don't think that we are. Maybe we are privately, but put it out there. There's enough bad leaks coming out that you're not listening to Rangnick. Put it out there that you are. Because if you're not, it's a farce. This is a man who has rebuilt football clubs, built football clubs under the RB banner. So he's got massive experience, massive knowledge. And Fletcher and Murtagh don't, especially not at this level. This is Manchester United. It's not Macclesfield Town. We need to be elite. And the last time I checked, Darren Fletcher was an ex-player of this club. So why do you need to speak to other ex-players about who they think their manager should be? I couldn't give a toss what ex-players want. They've all been wrong time and time again. Gary Neville said he was surprised Rashi didn't start, says Nate H. They've got Ralph Rangnick in to shut the fans up. Never had any plan of listening in. I said this the other day, threefold path. It feels to me like they wrote the season off in November and thought, how do we get away with this? Let's get Ralph Rangnick in because he's going to excite everybody, but let's not listen to him. Let's carry on with our same old trodden path of incompetence. But, going back to what was said there, I can't believe that that's been allowed to come out publicly. And fair play to Andy Mitten for writing it. Whoever told him it, I don't know whether United think it's a high five moment or a smack on the wrist moment, but the reality is, it's done the club no favours tonight at all that line is there, that United have consulted ex-players for their opinions. I don't care. I've got no... it means nothing to me. I don't know whether they think that's... Oh, the fans will love that we've spoken to ex-players. I mean, read the room. I don't. I'd rather they spoke to the Manchester United Supporters Trust. I'd rather they spoke to one of the fanzines. I'd rather they spoke to a season ticket holder than an ex-player. Because at least I know that they're watching every single game and they know what's been going on for the last 9 years. What I know about most ex-players of Manchester United that I listen to is that pretty much all of them said keep Solskjaer after he'd embarrassed us against Liverpool. Because he was a mate. I don't trust people who are mates rates. And that's why it says it on the thumbnail. I wouldn't trust these ex-players. Most of them have failed as managers. I think that's a great point. I think as a pundit, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you failed as a manager. Well done for having a go. But if you're choosing a manager and you failed as a manager, I think that's a definite hint that you shouldn't be listened to. But for me, the line is, if there was any ex-player that said after the Liverpool game, sack Solskjaer, maybe I'd give a little bit of a listen to them. But the vast majority of them didn't want to say it. And yet they've gone full steam ahead in on Rangnick from day one. I wouldn't listen to any of them. I know they think they've got the best interest of the club at heart, but I just don't think they're qualified to do it. And look, people will say you're having a laugh, but I don't think they're qualified to do it because I think their time as legends will never fade, but their opinion on modern day football is no better than yours. And why the club think it's a tick in the box to go and speak to a load of ex-players, maybe they should read the room because they certainly read the social media. And all I've seen over the last 2 or 3 years, I mean, even going back to the Mourinho days, even going back to the Van Gaal days, a lot of fans were getting fed up with the ex-players and their agendas. So I wouldn't listen to any of them. I wouldn't listen to any of them. Rangnick tried to change the team on a short term with his 4-2-2-2, but the players wouldn't listen to him. Rangnick has been fed over from everyone at the club, and I feel sorry for him. Fucked over, sorry, says Trim. Since they are asking ex-United players, why they're not asking Van der Sar, says Rob. Yeah, because, stereotypically, I think we all know what ex-players they're talking to. And it won't be people like Edwin van der Sar. It won't be people like that. It won't be people like Edwin van der Sar. It won't be people like Daley Blind. It won't be people who are ex-players who... we know who they mean. We know who they mean by the ex-players, and it's a select few, isn't it? Feel like I'm in a nightmare and can't wake up with United. The board seem to lack common sense and can't learn from examples in City and Liverpool, says Raza. Mitten said McLaren gave a good report of Ten Hag. That's good, and he's still pulling most support after consulting ex-players. Maybe Fletcher wants him, says Daniel Kirk. Yes. And I think that's very important, Daniel, what you've said there, because the McLaren thing was in that article. And as I said at the start, it was a balanced piece by Andy Mitten. That gave the pros of Eric Ten Hag, which were obviously around Steve McLaren, which we've spoken about. But the concerning parts in that article, and it's not, he's been given that information, are that Rangnick has not got much of a role in this, and it's Fletcher and Murtagh who are speaking to ex-players, and I just think that's the wrong. I think whatever happens, if we end up with Erik Ten Hag, that's all that matters. But Rangnick has to be involved in this. He's built football clubs. John Murtagh and Darren Fletcher haven't done it. They need to lean on that experience, because where else are they going to get it from? Ringing up an old mate that you used to play football for. Oh, I've got such and such on WhatsApp. Look, just because they've been on Sky or BT doesn't mean they know how to run a football club. And most of their opinions have been pretty poor over the years. Ralph Rangnick's built football clubs. They should be leaning on him, simply because it's a new direction and it's modern thinking. And we can't. I would avoid the mistakes of the past. I would avoid. Look, I think there's a lot of ex-players, not just at Manchester United. I'm old enough to remember Liverpool. I'm old enough to remember Liverpool just about being a good team in the late 80s. And through the 90s, match of the day, you'd have people like Alan Hansen on and Mark Lawrenson. They were both ex-Liverpool players who won trophies. Mark Lawrenson, I think, is still on. And they would always be going on about Liverpool because Liverpool weren't winning anything. Thanks. Welcome to the Members Club, Job. And in fairness, all they ever spoke about, Hansen and Lawrenson, was the past. What they did in their days. These players, no. And ultimately, did Liverpool get back to being good again because they tried to replicate what they did in the past? No. Liverpool got good again by building a future. And I think history is repeating itself. What I saw as a younger man and a younger lad on Match of the Day with people like Mark Lawrenson and Alan Hansen going back to the glory days of Liverpool, and that's what they need to do. I now see it with some of our ex-players. Oh, they need to get back to doing this. Man United's about this. We need this. We need this. And I don't think we do. Man City were a football club that has gone from a club that was never going to win the league to winning the league because of money. But they spent that money building a new club. There wasn't replication of the Sean Goater years. They built a new club. Liverpool are successful again because they're the same club, but they've built a new vision. Chelsea evolve every 3 years under a new manager and still win things. So why are United clinging to the past and getting advice from people who are living in the past? We've got to live in the future. And that's what Erik Ten Hag represents. And it's certainly what Ralph Rangnick can help us do. And I think we've got to use that. And if we don't use that, I think it's a wasted opportunity. I really, really do. And look, as I said, there's some worrying things there. We're not listening to Rangnick. We're speaking to ex-players. I don't like that. But in there is positivity around what Steve McLaren has said about Erik Ten Hag. There is positivity from Fabrizio Romano about Erik Ten Hag. He is still the front runner for this job. I don't see how he can't not be. And what I will say is, and I don't know whether I've said this before, Hoshin says this club has proven time and time again what a big joke they are. Ex-players and members of this board continue to disgrace themselves and the club. Look, that's probably unfair. I think there's some concerning stories coming out. But ultimately, as I said this morning, Richard Arnold's the CEO. He's got a very, very big decision to make. If he goes down the Erik Ten Hag route, he will be seen as a CEO that is going in a new direction, and there will be some positivity. If he goes down the Pochettino route, it will be seen as an LD, Ed Woodward, who is stuck making the same decisions we've been making for the last 9 years. But what I would say is this. I'm always going to be scared that they're going to go for Pochettino because I just don't trust the club at the moment until they prove they can be trusted. But Pochettino is not really wanted around Manchester United's vast majority of support. And Erik Ten Hag is. What we've been fed by... And look, that's irrelevant in a way. It's irrelevant in a way because if they appoint Pochettino, it'll bite them on the arse. But that doesn't mean they won't do it. But what we've been told over the last 2 weeks is that Erik Ten Hag is the favourite. And it's advanced with Erik Ten Hag. And he's very much impressed the club. And that's not to do with fan opinion. Fan opinion is that 85% want Ten Hag and 15% want Poch. But what we've been fed from the media and good sources is that Erik Ten Hag has done a really good interview. He's really impressed. He wants the job. And United have really impressed with him. And Pochettino, well, he's part of the story still, but there's not really a lot around him. How does that change? The only reason that changes is if somebody in United decides to go, yeah, we're really impressed with Ten Hag, but we want Poch. That's the danger. Because Erik Ten Hag's not going to suddenly do a bad interview. He's not suddenly going to make a mistake. And Pochettino's not going to suddenly come to an interview with a PowerPoint presentation that blows people's minds with props and all sorts. So I don't see how it can change. I see Erik Ten Hag has to get the job, but football's a funny old world, isn't it? If we get Ten Hag up with the start of a new vision, but he won't get the material to bake the cake as a whole, the board will listen to ex-players, says Pran. And if we go for Poch after ex-players have recommended to the board, it will just go as a further lesson for our current player power issues, says Tom Kent. And look, I think there was a great comment before from the person who said that, and I will adapt it, speaking to current players about who the manager should be is very much like speaking to rats about what rat poison you should put down. It's like they're going to say cheese, aren't they? They're going to say what they want. But ultimately, we are recruiting a manager. Why would you speak to ex-players about a manager when the only reason you're looking for a manager... Sorry, why would you speak to current players about who the new manager should be when the only reason you're looking for a new manager is because these players got one sacked? So we are appointing a manager to screw these players over. We are appointing a manager to give the players a kick up the arse. Why would you ever listen to them? It's embarrassing that Crystal Palace last night showed more passion and fight when they have nothing to play for than United did fighting for fourth, says Rory Saunders. And interesting part from that Athletic article mentions that club are aware that they should appoint a manager that the fans back, says Dan. Well, I'm in two minds about this, because really I think when you've got such a strong fan opinion, you've got to take notice of it. But you shouldn't appoint a manager just because the fans want something. And I know that sounds silly because obviously we're a fan community, but I don't think you should just do it because the fans want it. You should look at why the fans want it, and then you'll come to the same conclusion anyway. Most fans want Ten Hag over Pochettino for good reasons. It might be because Pochettino's been sacked 3 times out of his last 4 jobs. It might be because people feel that Pochettino's record against the top 6 and away record is shocking. It might be because people think that Pochettino, since that Champions League final for Spurs, has been on the decline. It might be because Erik Ten Hag is a more exciting coach. It might be because if Man City were looking for a coach, they'd go for Ten Hag and not Poch. It could be many reasons that why the fans have gone for that. And the club needs to come to that conclusion itself. It really, really does. But having said that, I also think that this club has made so many bad mistakes over the last 9 years in relation to spend, managers, and the vision's been completely wrong, and they've basically pissed their fans off year after year after year. In this specific circumstance, I do think it's important that the club do look at what the fans want anyway. In a normal circumstance, maybe if it was replacing Sir Alex, you maybe don't pay as much attention because you've just won the league. But in these circumstances, after 9 years of continued incompetence, I do think you've got to look at what your fans want, because especially a club like Manchester United, who are, some would say, more obsessed with social media interaction and brand awareness than they are with being good on the pitch. Well, look, football fans, Manchester United fans are your customers. Do you want them to be happy or sad? So they have to take it into account for those reasons as well. Mark, it was said that Arnold was going to let the football people, Ranić, make football decisions. That's just not happening, says Anthony. I still think it is happening, Anthony. I do think it is happening. I do think that there is a very high likelihood that Richard Arnold is letting the football people do all the work here. But the football people is not Ralph Ranić. It's John Murtough and Darren Fletcher. So it's going to be on them, isn't it? I still can't believe that our players have fully given up the season. I'm suddenly worried about the Everton game, says Jay. Well, look, top 4's potentially back on again, isn't it? I don't think it is, but there's something to play for. It's like asking obese children what they want for dinner and then giving them the blame when they get bullied at school, says Stone. Richard Arnold doesn't know football, so the decision is difficult and he has to rely on ex-players to make a decision. If he knows football, then the decision becomes simple and obvious, says the genius knows. Well, look, I think we've spoken about certain ex-players too much recently, and who knows what ex-player it's going to be. But let's just pluck a name out of the hat. If he rings up Paul Scholes is going to say Simeone, because he said that publicly. If he rings up Gary Neville, he's going to say Poch. There's no ex-player that said Ten Hag. So I suppose that's the biggest concern, isn't it? But as I said, every ex-player I listened to in those horrible autumn days when Solskjaer was just a pure embarrassment, all these ex-players were just like, yeah, he's a good lad, Ollie. I'm like, yeah, you got to look at the players. They wouldn't say sack Solskjaer. So I just don't value their opinion because of that. I don't. And look, Roy Keane wanted Simeone, Scholes wanted Simeone, Gary Neville, Nicky Butt, Wayne Rooney, they want Poch. So there's not an opinion that I think. I respect those opinions, but I don't think that they're in-depth opinions. I don't think they've really understood. I don't think they even understand Pochettino. I don't think they've done a lot of research on Pochettino. I think they've just probably trained with him a little bit. They know him from the Premier League. I think it's just a familiarity choice. So if you're going to speak to an ex-player, Van der Sar would probably be the number one. He's a technical director stroke chief executive of Ajax. He'll know world football very well. If you're speaking to an ex-player, Van der Sar would be the person I would speak to. Obviously, he's probably going to say get Poch because he doesn't want Ten Hag to leave Ajax. But if Van der Sar would speak to you in an unbiased way, he would probably be the best Manchester United ex-player to listen to, because it's not about how many times you played for United. It's not about how many goals you scored. It's not about how good you were for United. God, should we go and speak to Wayne Rooney because he was the best player that's an ex-player that's a pundit? Like, go and speak to the best person for the job, the person with the best experience of European football. And I think Van der Sar would be one of those people to speak to. But look, I will say this. At this moment in time, I would be 70%... Look, taking my emotion out of it, because people always like a percentage. What percentage am I that Erik Ten Hag gets the job? Taking my scepticism and fear out of it and looking at it pragmatically, based on all the stories and everything that's going on, I would stay 70% sure that Erik Ten Hag's going to get the job. 30% Pochettino. It should be 90% really, but I'm probably being a little bit sceptical there. I just don't trust the club to get it right. With every passing day, I've become more concerned. But you know what? We just have to wait and see. But ultimately, we're getting more and more stories. I would be very surprised if United aren't drafting some sort of brief as we speak to try and turn the tide on that story, because what's come out today looks very negative on Fletcher, Murtagh and the club, that they're not talking to Rangnick and they are speaking to ex-players. And that's not because ex-players represent Poch and Rangnick represents Ten Hag. That's not my issue at all. It doesn't really matter who the manager is in this specific topic. What concerns me is you've got Ralph Rangnick at this football club, who is one of the best builders of football clubs over the last 10 years in world football. We're trying to rebuild this football club. You've got amazing experience and knowledge on tap. You're basically not listening to him much, and you're going to speak to bloody pundits on Sky who used to play for the club. That's concerning, because that's not utilising your best knowledge base at all. You're going to people who get paid for a living to change their opinion every week, whereas Ralph Rangnick gets paid to build football clubs, which is what we're trying to do. That's what worries me. That's where I think United need to change course, or put it out there that they are listening to Rangnick and the ex-players thing is just not much. But it's not the first time. When Richard Arnold came into the job, there was a story that Richard Arnold was going to speak to ex-players about how they think the club should be run. An ex-player is going to tell you about the good old days. That's all they're going to do, because they've got no experience of building football clubs today. They've got ideas, but they've got no experience. If I speak to an ex-United player, they're going to tell me what it was like in the dressing room 10, 20 years ago. They're going to tell me about how they dominated football 10, 20 years ago. Man United wouldn't dominate football now the way they did, because football's changed. And we need minds who know the modern game. This club has squeezed every last bit of good feeling and nostalgia from the glory days for short-term profits. Says Stephen, I think that well is about to run dry. And Sean Finity says, the cynic in me says the board will dither until Ten Hag is snapped by another club, then claim Poch is the only choice when they hire him, says Sean. Well, in summary, and where we are tonight, is that Erik Ten Hag remains the favourite, but PSG are desperate for us to take Poch off their hands, because they don't want to pay him compensation. They want us to pay him. They want us to take Pochettino so they don't have to sack him and pay money, because PSG are going to go for Zidane or Conte. Simple as that. And they don't want Pochettino. So they want us to take their scraps so they can move on. And we should be saying, up yours, we're moving on, you sort your own problems out. We should not be a facilitator to help PSG become a better club by taking their scraps. We should be going for the best available, and that's what we need to do. Simple as that. Anywho, remember, BoohooMAN, you can hold your phone up like me in front of that QR code with your camera on, and it will take you to the website. You can get 40% off with the code EXTRA plus an additional 10%. I'm in my BoohooMAN Active Range jacket now. I'm tempted to say I'm going to go for a run. I'm not. I am going for a quick run to plug the TV in and change the screen to That's Football, because 8 o'clock tonight, double watch along, Champions League games. You can join me on That's Football for more football conversation whilst we watch the Champions League quarterfinals. McLaren was sensational at Middlesbrough, got them to the UEFA Cup final, providing he's keen to learn. He's probably forgotten more than most in football. No, says James Harper. Yeah, I wouldn't mind McLaren. I wouldn't mind McLaren. As a coach, I thought he was very good, especially at Manchester United and for England. I wouldn't mind McLaren at all. Thanks everyone who's become a member, by the way. We have got some exclusive content coming for you starting on Friday. We've got a head-to-head that you voted for. Go to the community tab if you are a member and you can vote for the one you want. Thanks everyone for watching. I will be on That's Football. Just type in That's Football on YouTube and the live chat's already open, and I'll be there with you in a couple of minutes. We're back in the morning, of course, at 10 o'clock with the latest news. We've got some early transfer news involving CDMs. I'll give you a bit of a spoiler. 2 CDMs from Europe that Manchester United are looking for, and it's not Tchouaméni. So we'll look at that as well as whatever else is happening tomorrow morning. And I'll see you on That's Football in a couple of minutes if you're going to join me there. Thanks for watching. Take care. Big shout out to BoohooMAN. Don't forget your 40% off. I'll speak to you all in a bit.